Interfering gods. Hand to desperate hand the Greeks fought. Step by bloody step the Trojans advanced over the treacherous sand. Slowly they edged towards the wooden hulls of the swan-necked ships. The smoke and flames swirling from their burning brands got closer. The ships reared up on the beach, propped up the poles as they had been since the fleet arrived. Their masts and oars were safely stowed over the piles of loot that the Greek army had taken. Hector called, "Come on, Trojans! We'll burn these ships without the help of the signs and portents of the gods." That blood-red snake was no warning from Zeus. His men believed him as he strode magnificently into the thick of the battle. Poseidon, who favored the Greeks, rose through the waves and watched the battle from a mountaintop on Samothrace. He was angry when Zeus gave all of his aid to the Trojan forces. He moved down the mountainside, making the forest tremble as he swept into the sea. He harnessed his fastest horses to his chariot and drove out over the waves. As the Trojan troops were sure they had the ships in their grasp, they felt a roaring wind in the storm as Poseidon passed through their line into the Greek camp. Poseidon, the Earthshaker, found Ajax and told him that the Greeks would hold the rest of the line, but the reinforcers were needed. Hector must not be allowed to force down their final defense and come close enough to the ships to burn them. Helmet to helmet, shield to slapping shield, spear to spear, they stood and waited as Hector and his men leaped for their defenses and were pushed back. The Greeks broke the charges of the enemy as a huge rock will break the biggest waves in a storm. Poseidon goaded the Cretan chief Idomeneus. "What happened to your boast of driving the Trojans back into their own burning city?" Idomeneus replied proudly, "We have not broken ranks. Nobody has shown the cowardice and run from this terrible battle. We will not die here to be the carrion for the Trojan dogs." Idomeneus called to his squire to come quickly. They moved to reinforce the left flank. When the Trojans saw Idomeneus coming, fierce as a flame, the mob attacked. And so it went on beneath the curving sterns of the ship. The killing fields were filled with long, flesh-cutting spears, and the sun-dazzled eyes with its reflections off of bronze shields and breastplates. Through all of this Achilles sat and sulked. Idomeneus flung himself into the attack, determining to bring down the night on as many Trojan eyes as possible. Meriones fought hard. Ajax fought like a god. Menelaus caught Pasendius the Trojan with his sword just above the nose. He reeled and fell, and Menelaus stripped off his armor. But with so many great fighters wounded, it was hard for the Greeks. Odysseus, Diomedes, and Agamemnon were all hurt. Agamemnon suggested again that they should head off for the sea. Odysseus was furious. "How do we drag our ships into the water with the Trojans at our backs with their spears and the swords? It's not even practical. We have no choice but to fight." Poseidon heard this and rejoiced. Disguising himself as an old man, he spoke as if he knew them all well. "My lords, you must not think that all the gods are against you. I promise the day is coming when the Trojans will flee back across the dusty plain to hide behind their city walls." Poseidon himself again roared his battle cry and put fresh courage into all Greek hearts. Hera had been watching from Mount Olympus and was pleased to see her brother Poseidon busy on the battlefield. She also saw Zeus sitting apart on Mount Ida, plotting how to help the Trojans. She came up with a plan to distract Zeus and to give the other gods a chance to intervene. Hector and his warriors broke the Greek lines. They carried smoking torches closer to the ships. Hera had little time. The Trojans raised their flaming brands high to the edge, up and edged closer. Hera would tempt Zeus into her arms. First she rubbed herself in ambrosia and perfumed oils, combed and braided her hair, and put on a glorious robe that Athena had made for her. She added gold and amber jewels and the headdress of 3,000 tiny golden filigree pieces. Hera called Aphrodite and asked her for the girdle of desire. "I'm going to stop Zeus from interfering," she said. Aphrodite laughed and gave her the girdle. Hera hurried to find Theos, god of sleep. Theos argued that he was too frightened to interfere. "Zeus will cast me into chaos," Hera promised. You can't have one of the Graces as your wife." Reluctantly, Sleep agreed to help. Hera went to Gargarus, the highest peak of Mount Ida. She knew Zeus saw her coming across the Cretan Sea. She knew he desired her, and he had when they first met, and that Zeus was losing interest in the struggling men running like bloody ants far below him. He had decided that if he left these men alone, victory would go where he wanted. Hera was looking especially lovely. She suggested he might prefer somewhere more secluded. We'll not be seen, Hera, my dear. I will bury us in soft golden clouds." They walked down the slopes hand in hand and lay together. Then sleep crept quietly to them, and earth sent up fresh grass, lotuses, roses, crocuses, and glorious blood-red poppies. Zeus slept.